Wait, but since you mentioned it, how is that Leahy review of the one unit?
I don't have any updates for you,
So in
Matt.
other words, there hasn't been anything done.
That's not true. That's not true at all.
That's not true.
When I stood behind this podium and
They
talked about
haven't
it,
been given a clean bill of health or given, given a
that
I don't know,
particular
red
unit,
notice or
that
whatever they
particular
call it.
unit, it continues to be under review. But on that same
for
day,
how long has
Matt,
that been
please
under
don't
review now?
interrupt me.
Hold-
When
Come
that
on,
same
come on.
day,
How-
I also talked about a number of other units in which, consistent with the memorandum of understanding that we have with Israel, we worked to identify issues and remediate and rectify those problems, so the security relationship with those particular units could persist. The point that I'm making is that we have levers at our disposal.
Okay, how long has it been since that's been under review? Yeah,
It
for that
would-
one unit?
It would have been a number of weeks, and I don't have any
A
updates
number of
for you.
weeks. Well, that could be like 52, that could be 100.
It was not 52. I believe
No,
we
I know,
last
but
talked
it's
about
more
this.
than a month.
Sure. I don't have any
Definitely more
updates
than
for
a
you.
month.
The point that I'm making, Matt, is
Okay,
that
so where's the accountability then?
we have a number of tools at our disposal, and you have seen this administration utilize them when it comes to
Okay,
the government
what
of
have you
Israel.
utilized? What tool have you utilized so far, other than the 2,000-pound bombs, the suspension?
We
What
just
else?
were talking about how we used Leahy vetting, but beyond that, there continue
But
to
you
be other
didn't use-
processes.
You haven't used Leahy vetting, you haven't suspended
Because
anything.
consistent with Leahy vetting is identifying
Okay,
paths to
so-
remediation
so
and rectifying that problem.
What other accountability measures have you used, other than the one small
point that
shipment of weapons that has been held up?
Matt, what I
else
said
has
was that
been?
there are levers at our disposal, and we've
What-
spent
okay,
a number
what are
of
they?
times talking about them. The Churg process is an example. The
what?
Leahy process, the Churg.
Yes,
Don't act
okay,
confused. We have
yes.
talked about
No,
the
no,
Churg
no,
process
yes,
a number
okay.
of times.
And the Leahy process.
The Leahy
And the Leahy
process,
process has resulted in what
Matt.
so far?
The point of the Leahy process, and
And
consistent
the
with
Turk
our
process.
memorandum
What
of
has been the
understanding.
result of that so far?
Consistent with the memorandum of understanding that we have with Israel, we had worked to rectify and remediate those problems. The point to Tom's question I was answering was that we have tools at our disposal for the responsible use of their security assets. That does not detract from our long-held belief that settlements and outpost activity are inconsistent with international law.
I think Vedant, the problem is that what he's raising and what a lot of other people are raising is that, yes, you do have these levers, but you're not using them.
We're also not going to speak to active and ongoing deliberative.
I don't ask. I mean, I just ask not because these are sort of one-off incidents, but this is systemic. Outposts, and now they're being legalized by the finance minister as part of this apparent deal. Outposts are there. One of the reasons that they exist is very specific. It draws in the military to Palestinian-owned land, and in many cases, this is privately owned Palestinian land that is taken by settlers. So it's more than just inconsistent with international law. It would be seen by any objective observer as the theft of land. And the point I'm making is that you're arming the military force that goes in to protect the people that do that.
So when it comes to the oversight of the security assets that we provide to any country, including Israel, there are, of course, accountability measures and protocols in place to ensure that such assets are used responsibly. And
But they're not. Those protocols are not obviously in place for these particular actions, because it's been going on for years and years. And now you have the Israeli government actually, as part of a deal, not to withhold correspondent banking, which is.
Tom, I stood behind this podium.
These are not individual incidents. This is something that.
Tom, I stood behind this podium a number of months ago to talk about how this administration used the Leahy Law to look into the use of American security assets in particular units that may or may not have been operating in the West Bank. So I don't want to get into a back and forth on the specific provision of arms, because that's a level of technical detail that we're just not in a place to get to. What I can say and reiterate again is that our security relationship with Israel is robust. It is far greater than just the West Bank and Gaza, that there are real, legitimate threats that Israel faces in the region. But when it comes to the provision of American security articles, there are accountability measures in place that the United States continues to have at its disposal to ensure that those articles are being used responsibly and for its intent. But simultaneously, it is also true that it is our view that settlement activity and outposts are inconsistent with international law.
the point I'm making is you say that's your policy, but it's actually not your policy. It's something you're saying, but what you're actually doing is militarizing the force that allows those outposts.
It absolutely is our policy, Tom, and we have taken
they're
a
now
number
being
of
legalized.
steps.
So many of these are on land.
It absolutely is our policy, and over the course of this administration, especially in the past few months, we have taken a number of steps to hold those accountable who we believe to be perpetuating violence and destabilizing actions in the West Bank.
So,
Now,
wait, but Doc, since you mentioned it, how is that Leahy review of the one unit?
I don't have any updates for you,
So in
Matt.
other words, there hasn't been anything done.
That's not true.
With Gaza, I just want to follow up on the West Bank, to Tom, question on the settlement. Is there any evidence, do you have any evidence that the Israelis listen to what you say, your expression of displeasure with the settlement and so on, let alone heed your warnings and so on the settlement? Has there been a shred of evidence over the past so many months? Now, you've spoken against the settlement and the spirit of settlement. Do you have any evidence that they actually said, okay, now we better stop because the United States is getting angry?
I'm not going to speak to private diplomatic conversations, Saeed, but over the course of this conflict, when we have raised things with our partners in Israel, they have heeded our feedback, and I'm not going to parse it more specifically than that.
But this is actually, I mean, that's a physical thing that you can point to. Has there been any sort of, tearing down a settlement, backing off plans to increase housing, by so many folds and so on? Has there been any evidence as a result of you warning time and time again and telling them that this is a violation of international law?
I'm not going to speak to our diplomatic conversations more specifically, but it's our hope that Israel is also interested in preserving and maintaining its own security in the region, and that's why we have been so clear that such kind of activities are not just inconsistent with international law, but a detraction from Israel's security as well.